You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Welcome to the Serious Growth Podcast, where the truth is told. On today's show, we have Heather McGivern. Is that right?
Yes.
Pretty close?
Yep, that's the one.
Hey, how you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you going?
For somebody that's my age, I'm doing pretty good. I'm not young and like you, but I am.
Ages is a number, I believe.
Oh, you'll see. You'll see. No, it's true. It's just, because so much of it is right here in the head,
Definitely.
And what I've learned, and probably you're beginning to learn, is that exercise really does make a difference. Living this lifestyle really does help. Are you a personal trainer by chance?
My background here is personal training. At the moment, I'm working in retail, but I'm still within the industry, but working in retail. So
yeah, but do you do, because one of the things that's really changed over the years from because I've been doing it 38 years. So I started where there was no online coaching, none of that. Internet was still kind of figuring this thing out. But now it seems like there's so many coaches that are online coaches now, and as well trainers. So the training that you do, is it online, or do you actually have a few clientele?
Like my coach, he's over 2 hours away from me, so everything he gives me is online.
Yeah.
But I think from having that trainer background, he can give me my exercise program and I know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
But I think also having that trainer background, you have the mentality to be able to push yourself. You know how to work to a failure. You know how to motivate yourself to train yourself like you were training a client.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of helps, but it can be hard if you've got an online coach, but you're not too familiar with the style of training to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
But it's very different now. Definitely there's been a lot of growth in the online scene.
Yeah, there really has. I'm really surprised. In fact, I actually do some of it myself now. I've always had studios, and so it's been more hands-on that way. But obviously the way the way the trend is going, it's a lot of this stuff is online, and you can become kind of irrelevant in a way. It's kind of like what places like some of these online places that are now taking brick and mortar out of business, because they do it in just a different way. It keeps their overhead down. Amazon, that's what I'm trying to say. And they've really put a lot of pressure. Anyway, so I can see how if you don't get on this side of that industry, you could be missing out on some. I would assume, because of all the trainers that I have now in my podcast interviewed, is that I would assume that you like to make this a full-time living for yourself or not?
As a personal trainer, I did do it self-employed for about 4 years. The consistency can get a little bit hard. I find personal training is very much a luxury for a lot of people. So I don't work as a coach for getting people ready for shows or anything like that. But I was sort of just doing the general sort of personal training with health and fitness and things like that. But I do have a lot of passion in nutrition. So I actually would like to look at studying and sort of taking a different avenue, because I think sometimes everybody is getting into the gym, but I find that it's the diet that everyone's having that sort of the trouble with that relationship with food and what to eat and when to eat and how much to eat. And that's why they will say you can't out-train a bad diet. So if I can help with the diet more and then assist with the training, it all comes together a bit more as a package.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that. One of the things I learned over the years is there's 3 components that are responsible for changing the body in whatever way the specific goal is. And it comes down to resistance training, or the weights. It comes down to cardio. It comes down to nutrition. In my view, those are the 3 components that need to be implemented throughout a workout. And yet most people don't have, number one, they don't have enough experience or information in those 3 components. And I would think that most of us throughout our, growing up, going through school, you've done a little weightlifting class or something like that. So of those 3 components, the weight training seems to be the one that most people, they kind of know a little bit what they're doing with that. Cardio, not so much, but cardio, but diet, you're right. That's the one that's the hardest of the 3 components, because it's, there's so much confusion in, like you said, how much do you eat? Should you, so I think that side of it is exactly where you probably should be if you were going to pick one,
Yeah.
And, but anyway, so now getting back to how like I said at the top of the show, your record for winning or going to all these events is amazing. When did you start? How old were you? Or just tell me at least how many years you've been in the industry.
No, I've been going for 5 years. That's 5 years I've been competing. So I was actually 32. So
wow.
Yeah, so I'd gone through a bit of a lifestyle transition. I just decided enough was enough, time to lose some weight, get fit and be more healthy. And so I lost about 10 kilos, and then I got into weights training, and I did that for about 4 years. And then everyone kept saying to me, why don't you compete? Why don't you see what you can do with it? And I thought, you know what? So January 2015, I went, why not? And then I did my first competition in September 15. So
unbelievable.
Found a coach, and 9 months of this sort of going to the next level. But the good thing is I already had established that lifestyle. I was already training 6 days a week. I was already eating relatively clean. So it was just then applying it to get it stage ready.
So how did you, it's funny how some people get into the bodybuilding as far as competing. A lot of times it's a dare, somebody is challenging, why don't you try competing? But how did you get into the weight training side of it to begin with? I'm going to address those 3 components. How did you even get started to begin with, to learn how to train?
When I first started training and going to the gym, I was the shy little girl in the back of the group fitness room. So I started with just group fitness. I loved body pump classes and just weights classes, and just loved the strength work. So then from the group fitness classes, I sort of went, okay, well, I need to step it up further. But I actually then, when I got onto the floor doing weights, I actually got a personal trainer.
Yeah.
I just went, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. I need structure. And so I got a personal trainer who helped me there. And then it was when I actually, probably in 2011, I moved to Toowoomba, where I am now in Queensland. And I was working at a gym. And so that's where I really started to working in a gym and just learning more, and then doing a trainer to be a trainer. And just went from there, and just you learn as you go, like you're always learning and always developing. And so it's just went from there.
Well, did you have any athletic background? Before that, like in school, were you playing soccer or anything like that?
Yeah, I played soccer through school, and I played for about 5 years when I left school.
Yeah.
I wasn't the best at it. And I did a bit of dancing. I did a bit of sort of jazz dancing as a child, and then as an adult, I did a bit of Latin American and rock and roll dancing. When I moved to Australia, it's just a great way to meet people.
Yeah.
So something different.
Yeah, because I'm always interested how people transition into the actual sport, because as you know, it's very demanding. It's really the type of sport, I think it's unforgiving in a lot of ways, because you have to be so committed to that. And someone like yourself who has done this, believe me, you are and you probably know this by now, you are in the minority as far as somebody who actually follows through. Over the years, I've seen so many people that want to compete, and I can tell you this, they like the idea of it more than the actuality of what they have to do. That's the thing. Because I've heard, I'm sure you have, what's so hard about doing that, what you're doing? Why do you need a trainer to help you? Or why do you need a coach? Because they don't really realize what you end up giving up. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm not. But for you to have that mindset to keep taking that next step, you already have that. There's that part of your personality that you've been born with, I think, right? Would you say that?
And definitely. And I think it's one of those things, it's almost like having like a bit of an OCD personality.
Yeah.
You've got to, like, OCD and bodybuilding is the most beautiful combination you can have.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think I'm one of those people who, when I said I wanted to lose weight, I gave myself a goal, and I was very focused. That was it. And that was even just going through a weight loss journey and like a bit of a lifestyle change. And so then everything that, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Like my other half laughs at me and he said, everything you say you're going to do, you actually do. I said I was going to do the Gold Coast Half Marathon.
Yeah.
I did it. I did it in the time I wanted. I trained efficiently to get the time I wanted. So if I commit to something, I will give 100%. And
Yeah.
I think though, if you also, I think I'm very blessed as well that for me, it's never been a chore because I love the lifestyle. I love the training. I love the discipline and the structure. And for me, the diet, like I love eating clean. So it was really just pulling it in tight when you need to, like when you lead into a comp, of course, it's going to have those struggles where the carbs get low and you're fatigued and a bit flat, but it's all worth it. But if you just love the journey, but you're right, a lot of people have this, they want to compete, but I think they have the idea they want to compete and then they think of stage, but they don't think of the path in the middle.
Yeah.
They go, I'm going to be on stage, I'm going to wear this amazing bikini and I'm going
Yeah.
to look incredible and I'm going to be shredded. But they forget about the big part in between to get there.
Yeah, big as an understatement, you know.
Yeah, and it's a long journey. It's a 24/7 lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not a part-time sport in any aspect.
I know people say, well, you must have spent hours and hours and hours in the gym. I said, well, to be honest with you, the actual time spent in the gym for me is not what you might think. I'm not really, I'm not really a gym rat that way. I go to the gym 6 days a week or 4 days a week, whatever it was, and whatever stage I was in as far as off season or pre-contesting. But I said the diet's 24/7. There's the one. There's the thing that's in your, constantly you're having to. And then I don't know about with you, but for me, I used to compete early on in the year, at least a couple of competitions, and then one towards the end. So I was always dieting at Thanksgiving, our holiday, Christmas, New Year. Everybody else was partying up and eating. But I tell you what, the good news about that is that it built a mindset in that when I'm like you said,
unbreakable.
It is. It's unbreakable, even to the point where it can almost be dangerous. Because you just override things that maybe your body is telling you. When you're under pressure and under stress, and you're saying, "I can do this no matter what." Well, that can have some negative consequences. So it's not something. It's nice to have that discipline and the mindset, but you also have to be able to control that and compartmentalize that it works for you instead of you getting, for example, hurt. Because I know I got hurt a few times, and it's just mainly because it was just overriding and saying, "Oh, I can do this. Nothing's going to stop me." So there is something to that, and it's kind of hard, I think, when you're doing it yourself because you're having to coach yourself in an objective way. And hell, that's hard to do. That's the reason why I have a coach a lot of times,
Yeah. And it's like I had a guy who came to my work the other day and he said he's competing. I said, "Oh, who's your coach?" He goes, "I don't have one." And so he's done sort of his off season and sort of his bulking by himself. And I said, "Listen, my best recommendation, if you've never competed before, you need someone who knows what they're doing to dial you in."
Yeah.
And I think that overwhelming stress of, am I looking right? You start questioning yourself. But if you got a coach who goes, "Yep, we're on track. We're good." It just takes that pressure off.
Yeah, it does.
And it's sort of just that you don't second guess. Okay, no, I'm on track. I'm doing what I need to do.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the coach's job to stress about. That's what my coach always says. He goes, "All I need you to do is what you're told, and I'll stress about if things aren't working. And if things aren't working, I'll do something. You do what you're told, and it will all come together."
Yeah, and that's important because you have to buy into that process, and so many people don't. Now the other side of that. So I took where I did end up having a mentor. I don't know if you ever heard of a bodybuilder named Tom Platz. Does that ring a bell to you?
Yes, I do know the name.
The Golden Eagle. That was his handle back in the day. Okay, big quads and blonde hair. Anyway, well, he ended up being my first mentor. So I learned this from, I was an athlete all my life. So when I got into the gym, I never weight trained because during those days, they didn't want guys that were playing certain positions to be in the weight room because I thought it was going to make you less flexible, which we know that's not the case. But back in the 80s, in the 80s, believe it or not, it was like that. They didn't think that certain people should be in the gym weight training, certain athletes. But so when I started, I actually learned by reading magazines. And then I did a little bit of weightlifting, but it was mainly through magazines and experimenting in my garage. I just had a little self gym, and I learned it that way, Heather. And I tell you what, in some ways, it was really good to learn it that way. I mean, it was a longer learning curve, I would say. based on what I do now as a coach or a trainer.
Mm.
But, Albert Einstein, one of his quotes is that the true knowledge is, or the best knowledge that you can have, a real knowledge, is through experience, first-hand experience. I think you have some of that as well. Initially, you talked about you were doing that. But I had to get this thing down to a point where, because this is my sick mind, I wanted to know exactly everything to the nth degree. And especially when I became a trainer, I wanted to know how to not only produce a result, but I wanted to know how to reproduce a result. I wanted to have that kind of command. And, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a coach and a trainer, because I think that process by which your coach was talking is necessary, because it compartmentalizes that. You don't have enough information to be necessarily being objective to yourself. And you need something like that. I needed something like that as I got higher into the sport, because their experience is greater than mine. I couldn't keep up with all that, and I had to get somebody else, but it sounds like a certain amount of this was you trying it yourself. But yeah, to be objective, there were times I didn't even know. It got so crazy when I was, especially pre-contesting, I looked in the mirror, I wasn't even sure if I knew what I was looking at, to be honest with you. I don't know if you ever got like that. It's like, okay, do I look this good or not? Because I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
It was crazy like that.
And it is when sort of people who hadn't seen me in a while, so like they'd see me and it could be like a month. And I actually found that with reps who would come into work, and as I was leading into comp, they come every month and be like, oh wow, look at you now, and your face. And but for me, when you see yourself every day, it is hard to sort of go, okay, well, how am I tracking? How am I looking? But I think that's a big part of taking photos as well, to be able to do comparisons and go, okay, no, we can see a change there in development, and I am getting tighter in there. And but it's because you can't always just trust what the scales say, because it's a visual sport. It's they don't care what your weight and your body fat is.
That's
because it's how you present it on stage. You could be the leanest on stage, but if you don't have good symmetry and muscle development, it's wasted.
Yeah, that is for sure. And
so definitely, it's you can sit there and judge yourself all day.
And what about lighting, for goodness sake? I mean, there'd be times I learned about that. Yeah, right? I mean, the time of day was important. At 10:30 in the morning, and one of my mirrors was exactly where I needed to be. You know what I mean? Because I go to the other side of the gym and look at that mirror. I'm thinking, how can I be this different just going to the other side? Well, of course, it was lighting. That made a big difference. So
I've sat there and taken photos to send to my coach in my kitchen, my bathroom, my dining room, just walking around in a bikini and heels, walking through the house. The other half and the dogs are just rolling their eyes, going, "Oh, yep, she's off now." Just trying to find good lighting.
I tell you what, if you don't have somebody that really, if you don't have a partner or a better half or another half that really understands this mindset, it can drive people crazy. I know it drove me crazy when the very first show that I did for me, I don't know about you, but it was like, I couldn't even stand myself. I'd have to go out, and I was married at that time for a few years, and I decided to do this as a sport. Well, when it got to dining like that, to that point, I never did that. I didn't know what the hell I was going to feel. I was cranky and I was, unsure, and I was getting a little bit of help, but I'd go take walks just to cool off and just get some perspective. I don't know if, what kind of experience you had with that with your first show. Was it a nightmare for you?
Yeah, my first year, because I was so driven and focused, and I think it just become quite a selfish sport to a degree, because you were so driven for this result that everything becomes about you. It's what you need to eat, when you need to go to the gym, and you can be a little bit selfish, and that's why I say to a lot of people, you need to make sure that you always include your partner and always think of their needs as well. And I think the first year as well, we didn't know if it was just going to be, okay, let's see how she goes. She might hate it. But then when I did my first year and the results we got, he could see that this was something that was just in me now. And he said to me, you know what, kid? He goes, we're going to make your dreams come true. And it was 2015. I said I wanted to win Miss Olympia. And he said, whatever it takes. He goes, we're going to make this dream come true. And it took 5 years and we got there. But he was with me the entire way. Like, I'd be at work. He works away week on, week off. And his week home, he'd be roasting sweet potato for me. Do you need something from the supermarket? And just, an incredible support. But like when he came to America with me in November, he's never traveled that wasn't with the army. So it was his first holiday.
Yeah.
And we went to Disneyland and Universal Studios and did the full day. And I had my asparagus and egg whites that I pulled out at Krusty Burgers at Universal Studios, and Disneyland pulled out my lunch. And you know what? That's where you just go, you know what? Have your big burger and everything. It doesn't worry me because you just got to work as a team.
Well, you know, and here's the thing: if you have somebody, because some people, I know over the years, it's like that. This is with regard to your partner, your wife or your husband or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. But it's like, okay, if you're not going to eat like I want to eat, then they would get upset with that. But if you have somebody that really understands, it's like, look, you can eat whatever you want. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
You know, competing, I'm going to eat my broccoli or whatever the hell I'm eating, but just go ahead. But sometimes, you know, people, they get upset with that because it's like, and I almost think in a way sometimes, this is why it's so important to have a great partner like you had. I almost think sometimes that they're envious and they wish that they could secretly do that, and they don't understand how you do that, and they don't get that sort of commitment and mindset. I know for sure in this sport, it's not like any other. There are other sports that require a tremendous amount of discipline and commitment. But if you don't have your heart and soul in this thing, I don't think you can do it. And I don't think you can do it in the right way. That's for damn sure.
Even my husband, he says to me, he goes, your willpower is just unbreakable. And I've gone on 2 weeks before my very first comp. I did an 11-hour wine tour for a girlfriend's hen's party, her bachelorette night. And I just made sure I had all my food, but I've got the most amazing group of friends that whatever I go to, they don't care if I bring my food.
Yeah.
Do you need your food heated up? What do you need?
There you go.
Can I do, like, everybody is so accommodating because they're so supportive that they wanted me to achieve my results and they knew what it meant to me. And they all wear like team shirts, like Team McGivern, and they all support me. Like, they're amazing. So I think I've been very lucky that, even when I go home to New Zealand, my mum messages me before I get there and she says, what do you need from the supermarket so I can have all your food ready?
You got to be trained.
She'll actually go and do the food shop of what I need so that when I land in New Zealand, I can just cook my meals and away I go. I think that just makes such a difference that even now my partner and I, we eat completely different, but I cook his dinner and then I'll cook my dinner. And But yeah, it works. Nobody's really bothered by it, so it's a blessing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and it does make it different.
I know some don't have it easy.
No, yeah, it's because they just can't understand the concept of that. Is like they just don't understand, and that's just the way it is. Your first show that you did you? Let's see, what category did you compete in the first show that you did?
It was figure.
So are you still competing in figure?
No, I compete in the Pro Physique now because in Australia they had figure, but the Federation Oswald didn't really have physique over here. Yeah. So for 2015 and most of 16, I did figure, and it's when I actually end of 2016 I went to America and I did figure and physique because they had both categories. So I did both to see kind of where I would shine. Yeah. And so then at the INBA World Cup in San Diego, I got my pro card in physique. Okay. And that's where we said, okay, that's where my strength is. Yeah. And then I just went from there. So now I just do the physique category. Okay. But you initially started with figure. Now, when you did your first show, was there any kind of, first of all, how did you do in your first show, first time out? Did you win it? Did you place top 5? I did. I got top 5 every category and got some center podiums. So my dream was, I used to drive to the gym just picturing center podium, just picturing my name being called, standing, like getting that. Like, it used to give me goosebumps thinking about it. So to have my very first ever show and to take a center podium was just unbelievable. Yeah. And that's where I just went, I just want more. Yeah. You know, one of the things I can tell right now from you is, you know, you have to have a stated goal, and the goal has to be, the objective has to be greater than the obstacles. You know, because all you do is in this sport is face these obstacles, especially as you're going to that stage. Mm-hmm. And it's quite apparent to me. And I think it's pretty much a common trait among the people that end up being in this sport is, you know, you have the goal, and then you just, whatever it takes to get to that goal. So now during those days when you first started, because I know the sport's changed quite a bit since I've come through,
did you have to do a choreographed routine when you were in a figure competition or not?
Not in the figure. It wasn't till when I went to America that I had to do the choreographed routine,
Yeah.
which I had to laugh the first time I ever did it. No one told me I could take my shoes off. So I did my choreographed routine in 5-inch heels,
Oh
and
my.
just was more thankful that I didn't fall over. But then they told me, "Oh, you can take your shoes off," and I went, "Well, that would have been a lot easier."
Yeah. Is that one of the distinctions between the figure and the physique? You don't have to have shoes on?
Yeah, well, no, that's more for the posing. Posing for figure and physique, you do wear the heels. It's when you do bodybuilding. That it's the posing is like, instead of the sort of the tiara hand, it's more the closed fist.
Oh, okay.
And then it's barefoot. So for the posing element, we do wear the heels, but for the 1 minute routine, we get to take our shoes off, just so we've got a little bit more movement.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because when I was coming through, there was none of the figure, the bikini, nothing like that. It was just all bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And pairs and things like that. So when I actually took a 13-year layoff, I competed until I started late, kind of like you did really in the sport. I started at 25, and where most people are starting at 14 or 18 years of age. So it's kind of late with regards to that. And then I stopped when I was 41. Then I took a 13-year layoff. And then I got the wild hair again. You know, it's like, I wonder what, my question that I asked myself was, I wonder if muscle really does have memory. Have you heard of that before? Muscle memory?
Very much.
Yeah. So as a bodybuilder and someone who was in the sport, I believed a lot of stuff just in blind faith. You know, tell me to take 4 grams of protein every 2 hours and I'll do it. I mean, I wouldn't even question that, at times. But so I came back for that reason. I said, I wonder if I can get it back to some degree, or even closer to when I was 41, because I was at my best at the age of 41. And I did. But when I came back, and all of a sudden it was like, I see the guys at board competition, we have bikini girls. I'm thinking, what the heck happened to the industry? And I didn't mean that in a bad way, because I think what it did, it made it more commercialized. You know, more people there's categories now, especially like when I went to the IMBA, I couldn't believe all the different categories that one could compete. You know, and I really think that having that, I asked myself, is it a good or bad thing? And I just really think that really does advance the sport, because it includes, and it makes it more inclusive to more people, because, I came through the IFBB and those organizations, unnatural. And to be honest with you, most people can't identify with that. It's a very cult type of sport, because people look at it and go, no, there's no way. I can't relate to that. And it's just more of a, there's those fanatics. But I think the way the natural movement is, I think it's really caught on. What do you think about that?
I think they've made it that there's something for everybody. I think it allows people to, like, they could just be starting at the gym, but it now allows people to sort of go, okay, I could give this a crack. What category should I go in? Like, it's like, I even love that they have for people who have maybe disabilities and things like that. Like, it just allows that it really should be a sport about not just bodybuilding, but it's health and fitness, and it's a lifestyle, and it allows people to have something to strive to, just to push them and motivate themselves even more. But there is definitely, when you think about sort of the old school days, and then you see where it's at now, it's like you go from the bodybuilding, you've got angel wings, you've got, there's tattoo categories, it is everything now. So, but I find very much the men's, like but I think a bit of the old school bodybuilders coming back now. The men's classic physique's very popular at the moment, I find.
Yeah. Is it pretty big in was it, well, first of all, was bodybuilding and was it big in New Zealand?
I never did it in New Zealand.
Okay.
So I was living in Australia. So I've only ever competed representing Australia, which my New Zealand friends forgive me for. But it is definitely taking off in New Zealand, having a lot of friends over there in the sport. Definitely in Australia, like, we've got the Arnolds here in the next 3 weeks. So the qualifiers this weekend, and then the big one in Melbourne's in about 3 weeks' time. So it's definitely, like, there's a lot of federations over here, but there's a lot of competition. So it's definitely getting a lot bigger.
Yeah. one of the things I met Denny when I went to Vegas. I met them because I used to do a lot of columns and advertising in Iron Man magazine when John Balick used to own the magazine. And then when I came back, I was trying to figure out, how do I go back into the industry? Well, podcasting was my way back in, because at this point, Heather, I'm 65 and I think I'm in good enough shape, but I certainly don't want to be that guy that's training anymore for bodybuilding. I don't want that. I did it. I enjoyed it. I love it. And I still do. I've had personal training studios, but I asked myself now when I came back, was after a 14-year layoff, and after I competed twice, I had to stop competing because I don't know if you know my history, but 8 years ago, I had 3 strokes that paralyzed me. And yeah, in 3 weeks, which was frightening. And I just couldn't believe that something like that could happen to me. And I learned great lessons about the stroke industry. Believe me, that's another story. But the point is this, then I asked myself, well, how can I be relative in the industry that I still love and have passion for? And it was now with my experience now, is to pass it forward and to get out there and start talking about it, because for
you to become the mentor now.
Well, that's right. I'm in that spot now, so to speak, And so I really enjoyed getting back into it. So then I thought, okay, where do I go to be more visible? And of course, it just so happened with timing, the next show that was coming up was the Las Vegas show. Yeah. And when I was in that booth, I kept thinking, because, here's somebody that's coming from some old days, and all of a sudden this is just like kind of new to me. It's like, what the hell's going on with all these categories and things like that? But the more I sat in my booth, because I had a booth there. I don't know if you came by. Some of the athletes came by and pumped up over there. I don't know if you did. Okay. But I kept thinking, what is it that it's got me stirred up, and I don't really know why. I kind of like it, but I'm not sure if I like it, Then it started coming together. It was like, I couldn't believe over time how friendly everybody was, like a family. Top to bottom, it seemed like, and then the way the athletes interacted with each other, the camaraderie, that was amazing to me to see, believe it or not. I mean, I don't know if you've competed in other organizations where it's not like that. Have you had that experience before?
I find something that because I had to have surgery at the end of 2017. So 2018, I didn't compete because I didn't want to do a rushed prep with having to have some time off training. Yeah. But when I came back, like when I told Denny that, I said, I'm having surgery and I won't be back next year, but I will be prepping for 19. He just, he held my hands. He said, if you need anything, we're always here. Yeah. And it just meant so much. And then when I came back 2019, because you chat with everyone on social media, but walking into the day we did registration, and it was like a family reunion. It was just so much love, and it's hugs, and it is like family. It's the most beautiful sport for me in that aspect of it as well, that everyone sort of goes, I get a lot of girls go, is it really bitchy? And I go, no. I said, it's probably the least bitchy sport or anything I've ever actually been involved in. Yeah. I said, a lot of the girls that I'm on stage with, to me, they're like sisters. Yeah, and we all still chat and catch up. And I think definitely it's not as what I think people perceive it to be.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And I thought, I'm skeptical by nature. And I thought, this is just almost too good to be true. I'm thinking, but it's like, everybody came to the athletes that came to the booth were just, every one of them were amazing to me, it was just, and then when I saw there was one category where the girls and the guys all at one point got together. The guys came back on stage, or the girls came back on, I think, and they were all together on stage. Just it's a whole different environment. And that's when I told Denny, I said, look, I want to be a part of this in a really huge way, because I've seen where I came from, and I'm not knocking it. It's just, but I think this is more where the industry needs to be as far as furthering it, because you nailed it. It's more about a lifestyle and a healthy lifestyle, and when you put that, it was obvious to me that the people that were doing that competition were there for the love of the game and the love of the athletes that were competing in the sport. And I had never seen that in the sport of bodybuilding to that point, so it was really refreshing. That's for sure.
And I think this, even my own experience, I think that's what makes it, that it takes that pressure off. But I think that's what makes you love the sport even more.
Yeah.
Like if you love the lifestyle and all the aspects of it, but then you can also apply the friendships made.
Yeah.
And then to get to travel the world as well. It's just all these bonuses that get added on top of something that you love doing.
That's for sure. And I tell you what, I mean, I've interviewed quite a few people. I've already made a lot of connections globally, and I'm sure you know this guy, Ken Ross. He's right in your.
Yeah. My first time traveling to America, my coach at the time didn't come with me. And so I was my first time traveling international. I didn't know. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm doing. But I actually got Ken as my overseas coach. So he looked after me. So he's amazing.
I tell you what,
beautiful man.
He was one of the first people that I met over there. And we went out at night. Actually, I got to know him even more. And it was obvious to me, when I was sitting in my booth, because I had the first, if you remember, I had the first booth as you walked in.
Right in the corner.
Yeah, and then Ken was around, and everybody that came in said, hey, Ken, he knew everybody. I was like, this guy knows everybody here, you know?
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I'm going to know him too. So I got to know, he's easy to know, as you know. I mean, it seems like he doesn't know a stranger. And so we've actually, Ken and I are going to be in South Africa. You know, they have a South African.
Yeah, that'd be an amazing competition.
Yeah, and so Ken and I are actually doing seminars together. And in South Africa, and we're going to be there. But I'm collaborating with him, and it's all about leveraging and networking. And
definitely.
And I've been lots and lots of friends already just from that one competition. I'm sold on the organization, as you can probably tell. So when you, so tell me, let's go back a little bit as you're competing now and going up the ranks. After that first show. That was obviously a novice. You were a novice at that point. Where did you go from there? Was it? It sounds like the trip was pretty quick. Your rise, so to speak. But where did you go from there?
So I took, because in 2015 I did go to the Australian Nationals, and I went knowing that I probably high chance wasn't going to place. It was my first year competing. I wasn't expecting to take out the Nationals, but I wanted to see what the next level looked like. I went, okay, I need to know what I'm coming in for next year.
Right.
So I went to the Nationals, and I didn't place, but I loved the experience, and I took what I needed to then apply to 2016. So 2016, that was a huge year. I did 5 competitions in 7 weeks.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a big, and even ended up almost adding on an extra one, because I did the 3 in Australia, and then I did the World Cup and the Olympia, but then I got my pro card at the World Cup, so I did the Olympia amateur day, and then I did the pro day the day after, so I ended up doing a double back-to-back day in Olympia too. So
back-to-back day.
I did 3 in Australia, and then the 2 back-to-back weekends in America. So that was a very big year.
Yeah.
Very, very big year.
To say the least. You did something very smart that most people, even athletes are hesitant in doing. And I think that you're really smart about that. It was, you need to compete at times in a place where you're outclassed a little bit, because you need to see that, and it puts things into more perspective. But so many people are afraid of failing or losing. And I just think that they missed the boat on that. When you go in and you say, because it automatically makes you better. There's so many teams, just like football teams, they play according to their competition. When their competition is tough, they play tough. But on the other hand, when their competition is weak, they play weak as well. They're not really a pro at that point. You should be able to play at a certain level. But I think what you did was really smart, because what that does is, as long as it doesn't destroy you, adversity in a way, that's adversity does one of 2 things. It's either going to define or destroy you. And you chose to let it define you. Just took you right up that. Okay, so after you did, what you said, 7 shows or 5 shows in 7?
No, 5 shows in 7 weeks.
Okay, so then where did you go from there? And did you start winning at that point in those 5 shows? Were you starting to now win, or you?
Yeah. Well, it was quite funny, because I needed, in Australia, you had to get in the top 5 to then be able to qualify to go to nationals, and then you had to go to nationals to be able to compete internationally. So I knew I wasn't going to. We were having 5 shows. I didn't want to go into my first show at my peak. So I didn't place overly, like I got podium. I got what we needed to take the next step.
Yeah.
So then as we got closer to the big shows, because our main one was always going to be sort of that Olympia heading to America. So then I went to the Nationals and I got 2 top 5s. So for me, that was a big thing because I went to Nationals the year before, didn't place, knowing what I had to apply to then get in that top 5 for Australian Nationals.
Huge.
And then I got two in the top 5 for Australia, and then I was set to go to America, and then headed off. And when I went to the World Cup, it was actually really lovely. My mum came with me. She was my sidekick, so she loves the sport as well, and she met everybody. But I won my pro card. I got some first place. I got most symmetrical and best woman in show. So that was a huge honor to win that. And then I got a gold at Olympia, and then I did my pro debut as well the next weekend and came 4th. So it was definitely a big year, but it was taking on those big challenges. But we had a game plan set. We knew the steps needed to take us to the next one.
It's important to have a plan. Have a plan, then work your plan and see how that, one of the things I learned from Tom Platz, he said, make sure you document what you're doing. And at that point, before I met him, I was like, I keep it in my head. I kept telling myself, well, I'll remember the next time when I start dieting and doing, because back then we used to do like bulk up phase and then diet, where now it seems like the athletes are staying closer to more of their competition weight. And I was towards the end of my career staying like, 15 or 20 pounds out compared to like 35 to 50 pounds out. You look like you're in good shape, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And I think it's a big part. I think for us, especially females, it's a very big part when you do take that off season of that bulking. Sort of end of 2017 when I had to have my surgery. I stepped off stage. I was about 57 kilos. And then I started with my new coach. With having the year off, I went from sort of 57, 58 kilos to 74 kilos.
Yeah.
And so then when it was the end of January 19, we said, okay, we're starting prep now. And by the time 3 days before Olympia, I was at 53 kilos.
Yeah.
So from 74 to 53. And I think it's a lot of, especially females, find it hard that, I'm not looking so shredded. I'm not so defined. I feel fluffy. And it's sort of just going, this is part of the process. You cannot, like, you want to do an off season, you're going to have to put on a little bit of body fat.
That's right.
It's part of the sport.
Yeah.
It's now, you don't need to look top notch stage right now.
Right.
Because I knew that everything I was applying was, and that's why everyone says, oh, there's an off season. I said, there's no off season. I said, because what you apply and what they call the off season is then what you bring to stage. You can't build muscle the month out the show.
Yeah.
So you've got to, I think, be comfortable within your own body.
Right. And you have to, like you said, the thing that you have to understand is that you are not looking exactly the way you want to look, but it's temporary. And again, it's trusting that. And so many people get so freaked out about that. And I don't really understand. One of the things that I would say, if I was to criticize some of the athletes, I think they compete too often. And, because then you can't really develop any quality. Your body's always under this stress. And because, your body is a fantastic thing as we know it, but it really doesn't multitask well. It does it because it's part of your fight or flight, and it will adapt to its environment unless you just totally blow it out of the water and overtrain to the point where it gets hurt. But your body will do that, but it doesn't do it most efficiently. And that's the reason why, a lot of the athletes that end up going pretty far in the sport, at least back in my day, was they compete actually less than more. They needed that body to, to recover a little bit so they could put on some quality, fix their body.
Yeah. I think that's what I learned as well. I think during 2015, 16, 17, back to back, and then for having a year off to actually have the time to build and develop and take it. And then for what we brought to stage 2019, there was a comparison, whereas I found looking at photos from 15, 16, 17, there were small adjustments and changes made, but from 17 to 19, you could actually see that. Yeah. So I'd recommend to any athlete that you need to be able to have the patience to take the time. And that's the big thing. Like, people go, I don't want to wait nearly 2 years or 18 months to compete. I want to go on stage now. And it's like, no, sit tight and it'll be worth it. So I think you've just got to have that discipline and patience within yourself to take the off season and then apply what's needed to know that it's going to benefit you in the long run, which for us, it did for the result we got. So
yeah, all part of that long journey. I've heard it so many times. It's like, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And, it's like, it's hard to imagine that, to get up to the world level, at the level some of these guys get to, it takes 10 or 12 years to get it really dialed in for a lot of these guys. I know people are doing it sooner, but for the most part, it's like it takes that length of time because of all the process and all the things that you're going through, the off seasons and, the trial and error coming in, and, you commit to a certain way of doing cardio as far as how much you're doing and how much protein you're testing all this out. And then you hope that it ends up with a good result at the end. Sometimes it doesn't. It's like, I crashed and burned.
And I think you've also got to put in an element of life happening. Like you could have this master plan and everything set to go, but then life is going to throw you a curveball, and you've got to be able to adjust your life around that. So I think you've got to be able to prepare yourself for what life's going to throw you while you're on that journey of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, because it will. There's no question about that. And
that it will.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen athletes, and I'm one included, how you put all this time into the right before your, for your competition, and that last week when you're dialing it all in, water, salt, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You could just blow it in the last week.
Yeah.
Really?
It's such a trial and error.
Yeah, and it's mind-blowing because, as you know, how many times have we looked better after the show? Maybe a week, it's like, oh my God. And if you take a look back and you're documenting, here's what happened. Here's what Mr. Tom Platts taught me. He said, bodybuilders they're that animal that they just want to keep tweaking it to make it a little better. And he said, but essentially what happens is they come in and they crash land, at the show. And he said, think of it as an airplane coming in for a smooth landing. And that always made sense to me. It changed the way that I started coming into shows, instead of like, God, I have to do this, just one more little tweak. And all of a sudden you flatten out, you're done, Yeah.
This overcomplicate the situation completely.
Oh man, it's amazing. So tell me, where do you go from here? Are you going to keep competing for more, doing more of the like the Vegas shows, the Olympia, or where do you go from here?
I am looking at just taking a little bit of a break after doing sort of the 5 years. I think it's something that's always in my blood. So I imagine definitely I'll be back. I might look at sort of doing some work in the Masters as I get a little bit older. Like as you said, you peak sort of where you're sort of in your 40s. I'm thinking that could be just to take a little bit of time to develop the body, maybe take a couple of years and just see what I can do. And like I still work within my coach, and for me, the lifestyle doesn't really change. To tell you the truth, people ask if I'm still in prep with how I am.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, it's just who I am. So I think the groundwork is always going to be there for me. Definitely want to stay very involved in the competitions, looking at helping with running the events and sort of working with the INBA teams and seeing what we can do there. So definitely very keen to still be amongst it and go to Olympia and be with the athletes and everybody there.
Yeah.
But just take a step back from the stage element of it and just let my body have a bit of recovery.
Yeah.
And just develop more now that I've realized what I can do and having some time off. I sort of think, well, if that's what a year off could do, maybe a couple of years and come back and be sort of that 39, 40 years old and see what we can bring. And
yeah. And by the way, when I mentioned earlier about the muscle having memory, if it wasn't what happened, I had my strokes like before one of my competitions. It was really, really weird deal. But I'm going to tell you something. I was pretty darn close. I needed one more year, I think. So the truth is, muscle does have memory, and And I believed it more in blind faith until I actually did it. And I tell you something for sure, because I was paralyzed on my right side, and I made a recovery. And if it wasn't for the sport that I was in and knowing about training and nutrition, it wouldn't have been the same outcome, because people don't have very good outcomes when they have this happen to them. And there's reasons for that. But I have to tell you, mind-muscle connection, I learned all about that too, because having paralysis and not being able to move my arm. And so it was an amazing thing. This sport, Heather has saved my life in a lot of ways, so I have no regrets. It's just been part of my process, just like what you're going to, as you go along, you're going to have, because you're going to see how it's going to be down the road. And I think you will be amazing. You look, like I said, you look really good on camera here. And then, so let me ask you, as we're wrapping this up, is there anything, because I always tell people that come on my show, is there anything that you would like to promote as far as something that you're doing, or if you're a lot of the guys and girls, ladies are promoting their online coaching. Is there anything that you'd like to promote?
Not so much. I don't really have anything that's my own sort of venture or business or anything like that. Sort of like for myself, I work in retail through a supplement company. It's called Nutrition Warehouse, and so it's very, very big in Australia. There's about sort of 74, 75 stores throughout. But I think it's nothing that really I'd be promoting. I think just, if anything, I'm just telling future athletes, just love the journey. I think you find yourself and love every aspect of it, and just don't do it for anybody else. And definitely with online coaching and things, it's finding the coach that's right for you. Like my coach Leon, he's a Body by Leon in Kawana and the Sunny Coast, and it's finding someone who just understands you, your mindset, and then takes the time to get to know your body and developing it, and just someone who really cares. But just sort of passing it on to the athletes. But I don't really have anything that I'm sort of endorsing or anything at the moment. So,
but what you said, I think is huge, because your information that you're giving people as far as, what you should have getting into the sport to begin with is the passion and, make it a lifestyle and enjoy the journey. And I think that's really important. I think that's really smart information. And listen, whether you like it or not, and I'm sure you like it, you're going to be an inspiration for people, and people will look up to you and say, I want to be like that, and I want to know how to do that. So you're inspiring people all the time, probably more than you maybe know it.
Thank you.
I think that I get a really, I'm a quick study on people, because I've been around them 38 years, and being in my own studios, I've worked with thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands at this point, and I can read people pretty quickly. And one of the things that bothered me coming back into the sport was I just got a sense that now that, and I think social media is great, don't get me wrong, but I also think it brings out some of the crazies in the industry that call themselves coaches. And that was really irritating for me, because I know, I'm working with people come to you are unsuspecting. They don't know. They're putting their life in a way in your hands. And when I was seeing some of the stuff that was being talked about out there, I knew in 3 minutes that they didn't know what the heck they were talking about, And so this is my way to come back in the industry and start talking, and hopefully talking truth, because that's what I've always been known for in the industry. I wrote training courses, and I was always counter popular, not for the sake of it, but it was always about talking straight to people. Yeah. And I get a good sense from you that you're one of the legit ones in the industry, and hopefully, and I know you will, you'll stay true to yourself. You're going to keep that sport moving forward and not backwards. And before we leave, I'm going to ask you to do something. If you don't really want to do something, you got to say no. Will you please shoot a double bicep on camera?
Okay, well, I'm in my car, so if I get out of my car, I've got 2 puppy dogs, so I had to find somewhere.
Give me something to look at here, and our viewers, because you look like you're in shape. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Nice.
All right, we got them in.
Hey, Kate, now if you can't do this, that looks really great. Can you give me a side chest?
Side chest? I'll try. It's a bit of light in this light.
We're going to give these people some. There you go. Nice. Very nice. Thank you very much for doing that for our,
not a problem.
I thought
it's always a bit of fun.
I thought you might do that. Hey, listen.
Anything to keep everyone happy.
I understand. Hey, listen, I want to really, I appreciate you coming on. I thank you for your time. And
thank you so much for asking me.
I think this has been a really good, I've learned a lot about you, and I think some people have too. And continued success. and maybe we'll see each other down the road. Who knows? I'm going to go back to, I'm going to be involved as much as I can with Denny, and maybe we'll run across each other's paths again.
Yeah. You looking at going to Olympia this year?
I'm sure that I'll be there because I've got myself scheduled for now I know I can't make every one of the shows, but I'm booked from March on. I'll be at, like I said, South Africa. I plan on being in Romania and all the shows. I'm going to the Muscle Beach one with Nora. I'm sure you know her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so I plan on being very involved because we're back again, and we just published our 5th training course that we're going to be launching. Actually, the launch is going to be in South Africa. It's going to be ready in March the 15th. So we're back in the industry now in a big way, and that we're actually, producing training courses again. And so this is great fun for me. I have to tell you, to get a shot at doing this again and doing something that you love, and I know you will. It's just, I'm one of the luckiest people out there to be able to get up in the morning, and I look forward to doing what I do,
Yeah, I think that's
cool.
something different. Not many people get to do it. I don't think people believe that they can do something they love.
I know.
That they can actually make a lifestyle out of something that they love. And I think for me, I think with the sport, I think that's something I just want to apply it in every aspect of my life. So I think that's awesome for you. But I'm fingers crossed going to be at Olympia this year and helping out, and won't be on the stage, but I'll be with everybody else.
I'm sure that I'll see you there. Anyway, nice meeting you, and we'll talk soon. Okay? Thank you.
Lovely. You have a great day.
You too. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks for the double bicep. Appreciate it.
More than welcome. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.